And some fucking new guy, FNG, in the armory, is like, NVG, so who are you? I say, I'm Drago. In 1981, in December, they imposed martial law. So they started at midnight of that day, they started raiding the houses all over the Poland, arresting the activists, arresting opposition, arresting everybody that they had on that list that they deemed in opposition to socialism. I was arrested when I was working on the point when we were printing that newspaper. At that time, I had no fear of firearms. I just didn't realize how dangerous they are. Yeah, I went to SEAL Team 2 first, and becoming a SEAL was a little bit different. SEAL platoon says yeah or nay, then you become SEAL. So I very quickly reminded him that it's not the Polish eagle because it's missing a crown. The crown the Bolsheviks stole. I would not want to be in your shoes when this eagle comes back and kick your fucking ass.
Welcome to Mic Drop, the podcast where relevancy is irrelevant and we don't give a shit about your feelings. Ladies and gentlemen, as always, it's both an honor and a pleasure to welcome my next guest to the podcast. This one I've been working on for a couple of years now. He's originally from Poland. I spent a year and a half in a political prison, otherwise known as a gulag. He spent 20 years on active duty as a U.S. Navy SEAL. He's got a Bronze Star with V, a Navy Commendation with V, and an Army Commendation. He's been on over 100 DAs in Iraq, some of which were with your brothers, the Graham guys, right?
Yeah.
Which we'll talk about. He's the author of a new book called Pledge to America, which we're going to get into. He's a founder of the Navy SEALs Fund, which is a great organization that helps frogmen and their families. He's the inspiration behind Rocky IV's villain. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the stage, Drago Dzieran.
Thank you, brother. Thank you for inviting me. I was always, I'm following you, so I watch your podcast.
Oh, I appreciate it.
And I was just thinking, well, maybe I can get on it too, you know. But so when you call, it was like freaking awesome. Thank you.
That's a no-brainer, man. Your story is incredible. I mean, I can't wait to dive into it and let the listeners and watchers experience it because it's truly remarkable. What's the last full book that you read?
Last book that I read was Solzhenitsyn, Gulag Archipelago. I reread it. I read it quite a few times, and I think people ought to read that book because it is very, very telling how socialism and communism work. So I think it's important to read, especially nowadays where we have such a uptake of socialists and communists views in our country, and that book explains very well how dangerous those ideologies and economic systems are.
Is it in Polish or is it in English?
Oh, that's in English. This book was Solzhenitsyn is Nobel Prize winner, right? So he is published almost in every language in the world, his book. Oh, except Soviet Union, except in Poland, when Poland was a socialist state.
Yeah, that's awesome. What's the biggest thing that you miss about Poland? Or is there a thing?
I tell you what, I would have to think, but definitely what I miss is my mom, my family, and food. You know, there's something funny, but the food when I was there was not healthy, was scarce, and I didn't have enough. I was always hungry most of the time was hungry, but I missed it. You know, it may be funny. I miss also my childhood because now when I look at it, when I share some of these with my family, with my friends, everybody like, oh my God, this is not possible. This is so bad. I didn't see it as a bad. I mean, I was just living it, and I was poor. I was, but there were such times in Poland at the time. So
food-wise, does one thing stick out as being something that you miss eating?
Yeah, I learned how to make it. Crepes, Polish crepes. We call it naleśniki. Oh, well, I love that. Yeah. With plums or with strawberries inside or raspberry. And but again, most of the time I just ate them plane because we didn't have raspberries, strawberries.
Yeah. So you know how to make those now?
Oh yeah, no, I know how to make it. I love it.
I think that's Instagram worthy. Is a reel of you making strawberry crepes.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think we need. I think the world needs to see that. What would you say is the biggest difference between the U.S. and Poland? I mean, I think there's some obvious things that people would think, but I'm curious from your perspective.
I'll tell you what was the biggest difference, and it evolved slowly. It evolved from being totally different, opposite system where people were told, and I'm talking about the socialist, communist times, where people were told where they will work, what they will do, when they will go to school, and what they will learn, as opposite to our country, to America, where we choose our ways to live, how we want to live our lives. So that was the biggest difference at that time. Censorship, political prisoners, oppression of people with different views, oppression of political opposition, versus here you have a freedom. You can say whatever you want to say pretty much, right? As long as you don't harm other people. You can call politicians out. We can call out politicians any way you want, right? And really, there is no, you are not thinking about police, secret police knocking on your door and dragging you out to prison because you express your views that are not in line with, let's say, Communist Party like it was in Poland. And that's what happened in Poland at the time. That was biggest difference. But then, like I say, it evolved. The communists are gone, at least on the surface. Poland is a free country now, so now it looks more and more looks like America. Looks like I tell you the biggest difference now that I see. A friend of mine, a former Grom operator, came to visit me maybe like 8 months ago, and so I live in the suburbs. So he said, "Well, I'm going to go for a run, maybe like 4 or 5 miles run." I said, "Go ahead." He came back, I was spooked. It's like, "Look, dude, there are people waving to me." Yeah. It's like, yeah, how they wave you like this? It's like, no, they wave like this and say hello. I said, "That's America, dude. This is how we live. This is how people are. And when you learn about America, you will see how great is the country, but the country is great because of the people." Yeah. And then he said, like, "I've seen the sign. It says on the road, children at play, caution." I was like, "What is this?" I said, "Well, kids are playing." And sometimes, when you drive on the street, you need to be careful because the kids are in vicinity. Wow, in Poland we have a sign, "Don't play, we're gonna go and punish you, we're gonna go write you a ticket." Kids do no play on like the signs for. So he's like backwards. So when he was leaving after the visit, we actually had to drive on that end of the street, of my street, and he had to take a picture of it. And he published a book now about me, and that picture is in that book.
Oh, wow.
So this is like a very big difference. But otherwise, I mean, they have a freedom. They can say whatever they want to say. At least it looks to me like this. When I go up there, people are not afraid to express their political views, their opinions. And for me, this is great. I mean, this is something like in America. But in America, this is normal. We live this life. Up there I think is only maybe decade or maybe couple decades old, where people are learning again to be free, to live free lives.
Yeah. What are the two key components for canine success? That's effective training and proper nutrition. Fueled by Team Dog brings those two components to your family and best friend. The perfect nutritional balance that results in a higher mental acuity, energy, overall vitality, and even an improved appearance. Every product you will find in my company's store was born from the battlefield and not from the boardroom. Let my life's work help you become your dog's hero. That's incredible. I am curious, kind of along that same vein, from when you got here until present day, you see a lot of rhetoric in the media and on both sides of the political aisles in the political theater, if you will. People talking about, trends towards socialism, communism, et cetera. And it's obviously more prevalent than it was, say, 30 years ago. But when you hear, you talk about growing up in communist Poland, comparatively, like, does it make you laugh when there's that comparison, or do you see some of the things that are going on and it concerns you?
No, it doesn't make me laugh. Actually, it concerns me a lot.
Yeah.
And actually, people who read my book, the Pledge to America, they express the concerns too. They say that some of them think that I describe America today. No, this is what I describe. I didn't touch anything of this nature about America. I talk about socialist Poland run by communists like my father. My father was hardcore communist in a pretty high position in the Polish communist government. So I described that my life in communist system, and people making these connections now. And, when I read their comments, I'm kind of start worrying it too, because there is so many, seems to be similarities where our country is going to. But again, America is not socialist country. I don't believe that ever socialism will take place here. You can see the pushback from society. America was built on the personal freedom, on people built it who were freedom fighters. So no, I don't see it taking roots. Maybe in some places where it's more of it, but yeah, I'm concerned about this. I'm concerned about censorship. I'm concerned about the political prisoners right now held by Democratic Party in Washington, D.C. That's not right. I mean, these people, some of them sit on, 2 years without sentencing?
Without even being charged.
Not even being charged. Yeah. That's not, these are not political prisoners, not much different than I was in communist state in Poland. So, yes, I'm concerned a lot about that stuff.
I appreciate the insight. I mean, because there's a lot of rhetoric that gets thrown back and forth, and when
on both sides.
Yeah, and when you talk about some of the things growing up, it's very different than even the way things have started to trend here. Like there's still a pretty stark contrast. But I share your concern for sure. Some of the things I see are absolutely concerning. Before we get into your childhood in Poland, just as a kind of a lightning round last question that I like to ask everybody, what is your morning routine, the first couple hours of the day? What time do you get up and what do you do for the first few hours?
Well, what I used to do and what I do now. Now I like to wake up slowly. Actually, my wife wakes me up very gently.
What do you mean?
Well, and then I like to lounge in the bed maybe for 30 minutes. Then, of course, go eat breakfast. Most of the time she has already breakfast ready for me. And then I go work out. So I start usually around 4, 5 o'clock, 6 o'clock in the morning, and then my routine starts. Then I go to work. I work remotely, so I sit down on my computer. I work out every hour or so. I try to go do some lift on, jack the steel, and go back to computer. So that's pretty much my morning routine.
That's a good routine for sure. As far as the breakfast, what is she making you for breakfast?
The crepes. We were talking about it.
Oh shit.
But the crepes, eggs, most of the time the eggs, maybe steak. I'm kind of like, I'm carnivore, so I like meat. And for me, anything else may not exist even, but just steak, eggs, and all that stuff.
A facultative carnivore, steak, eggs, and some crepes on the side once in a while.
Yeah, the crepes on the side. That's a sweet thing that I'm allowed to eat sometimes.
It sounds like your wife takes good care of you. That's awesome.
She domesticated me. She domesticated me pretty good. Well, I believe she domesticated me. I say she domesticated me, but she says if you ask her. She will tell you that I'm still project under construction. So I'm still working.
That's good stuff. All right, so I want to dive into your childhood and what it was like growing up in Poland. You've shed some light on that already, but I'd love to hear kind of the path that you grew up in and walk us through kind of what that was like.
So, like I mentioned earlier, I was born in Poland when there was still a socialist state run by communists like my father. And because of my father, my life at the beginning, maybe 2-3 years, maybe 4 years, 5 years was awesome. We had everything. I mean everything. You know, whatever you can buy in socialist country, there was still empty shelves. But my father had access to government stores, so we could actually buy more and live a better life. But when he took off, when parents divorced, my life totally changed. My father was ardent communist. My mom was Christian. So my father was always living in fear that somebody can see my mom and me, my siblings going to church. That could mean end to his career. So I remember the fight. I think that, this is like, I don't remember how young I was. I had to be maybe 3 years old maybe. And how funny how you can remember some of these things when you are so young. But I remember when my grandmother came in and they decided to go to church and take me with them. And my father, I still remember him standing in front of the door, putting his hands up and say, "No church. The church is superstition. You can't. There is. It's just a stupid thing. You're not going to go to church." So my grandmother or my mother, one of them went outside, and I was passed like a football through the window. So my father, he could stop me, but he could not stop any of them. So he eventually said, "Okay, you guys can go, but I don't want your mother," so my grandmother, in the house anymore. She was coming, but he was so upset that we had to go to church. The whole party was fighting the church, and there is a reason for it. We can dwell on it a little bit more later if you want. But yeah, that was.
Yeah, I mean, I'm curious as to. I guess I didn't realize the pushback or the anti-Christianity component to communism, or was that specific to Poland? Or
no, it is. Look, the socialism and communism are immoral political ideologies, and somebody with moral views based on faith, anchored in faith, something that is immutable, is a dangerous person to socialism and communism. So they try to disparage, they try to uproot and throw away these anchors of Polish society that was very, very Christian. And that's something that eventually it backfired. But please remember that socialists and communists, they want you to subscribe to so-called, like my mom used to call it, relative morality. Relative morality, that your anchor, your moral anchor, is basically doesn't exist. It's not in something that is immutable. It's based in politicians' view or ideology. And we know that politicians' view change. We know that ideology mutates. And the best example is another socialist, Adolf Hitler. Yeah. Adolf Hitler and his socialist state eventually were able to convince the German society. At that time, there was one of the most civilized societies in Europe, convinced that euthanasia is okay, that killing handicapped people is okay, that exterminating entire nation of Jewish people is okay, and they were okay with it. They didn't dwell on it, they didn't inquire into it, and you see when the socialism led, once Hitler was able to remove those moral anchors from society and basically base the faith in him and his ideology. So we know how it ended up, and the entire world paid price for it. So
with that, when you were growing up in school, how was that taught?
The school were all, and there's another thing too, is very characteristic for socialism, because free people don't subscribe to slavery. So they need to change their perception, the socialists, the communists. Well, communists, because communists understand that socialism is just a stepping stone to full communism. And we can talk about it because I had a long conversation with my father, who, like I say earlier, was ardent communist. So I had this conversation with him. But that's something that is very dangerous. The faith is dangerous to socialism, and they want you to subscribe to their political views.
As far as World War II and the Nazi Party, was that taught in your school as being something that was evil?
Yes, many things were taught, but with the twist. Everything that did not support socialism, socialist ideology, or communists were twisted or was completely removed. So in Poland, and not only in Poland, in Soviet Union, Czechoslovakia, East Germany, all the East European camp, the monuments were removed that did not support socialist ideologies and destroyed. Schools and history was twisted. And I think the best example is if you read the Gulag Archipelago of Solzhenitsyn, there are pictures there. And there's a picture of a very prominent Russian, and the same thing he did in Poland, but I think you can see it the best in that book, leaders of the, at that time, Soviet Union. And then on the next picture, some of those people that were executed or murdered by socialist state were removed from these pictures. So the next picture is the same picture with the same guys, except the murder one is missing.
Wow.
So that's what they teach. That's how they teach history in the socialist states. Even Polish symbol is an eagle, but eagle with the crown as a royalty. Well, the communists stole basically they stole the crown. I say crown is a symbol of royalty. We cannot have it. We are the workers' country. We hate those royalties. And so after 1945, after Second World War, when communists settled down in Poland, that crown was removed from Polish eagle. As a matter of fact, I had a fight with the military officer before I came to America, like verbal fight about just that crown and the eagle.
Oh, wow.
He was trying to admonish me. And people like you should be serving in military under this Polish eagle, and he shows on that eagle above his desk. And I was like, dude, that's not even Polish eagle. He is missing a crown. Yeah. That's communist eagle. The Polish eagle was kidnapped and sent to Siberia in 1945. And I tell you, I wouldn't want to be in your shoes when this eagle comes back and kick your ass and your commies. Yeah. The eagle came back, and even today, some of these judges or military officers who participate in murders of political opponents are today prosecuted. Wow. And a matter of fact, I got a call from my city prosecutor from my city where I grew up, asking me about my case because I was beaten up. I was beat up in prison. So he wanted to inquire about this too. And matter of fact, now Polish government that has nothing to do with communism anymore, they pay reparations to former political prisoners. I'm eligible for it. I just declined because I'm American. I don't accept money from other governments.
Yeah. Wow. How old were you when your parents divorced?
I was 7 years old. I was in the first grade.
So prior to that, in the first 7 years, from what you can remember, what was a typical day like growing up?
That I don't remember very much. For me, it was, that was actually funny because that's very, very contrasting with the life I have today, with the way I approach my children and how I grow them up. So I remember I was maybe 4 years old. So we were given the house shoes because like in kindergarten, you could not wear the shoes that you wear outside. So you always carry your house shoes, like flip-flops or something. So my mom and my 1 year younger brother, we are giving flip-flops the house shoes in each hand. We hold our hands, and there we are, march to school by ourselves. We had to go around to kindergarten, to school, cross like a pretty major street. But we were taught already how to cross the street, look left, look right, look left again, and then quickly cross, don't run. And and also how to approach the street from behind the car, stuff like this. So I was 4 years old, and we were walking like maybe a mile by ourselves, and it was on the suburbs of that small city, Zielona Góra, like a little bit outside. So we never felt insecure. My parents never felt insecure about us just going to kindergarten by ourselves. We were picked up by them, but go to kindergarten, we were going by ourselves. The play, we didn't have any toys. I didn't have a computer. There was no computers at the time. So our plays were playing in the fields, walking the streets, sometimes just fighting with the kids from the other street. And I remember I was always curious about the machines, and so I remember motorcycle. Our neighbor got himself a motorcycle, so we started playing and figure out that we can drain the gas in the car by pressing a button. So we did. So we heard the guy were always warned the gas will set things on fire. So we say, well, let's try it. So we throw one match, nothing happened. We found out there's like pretty big cup of gas. Nothing happened. So we say, well, I think they lied to us. I just put it out on the motorcycle, and it set on fire. I burned the neighbor's motorcycle. So, but that was the way we played. Sometimes we play in the fields. We like to bake potatoes in the fire, so we build a fire. But we got the idea that so nobody will see us. We build a fire in the middle of the wheat field. Well, you know how that worked out. We burned the neighbor's wheat field. The saving grace for it was my father was communist. So when they started complaining, my father was able to terrorize them. Well, tell them, you can't do it, or it's going to end up not good for you. Yeah. And he was able to squash that because he was pretty high there.
So what did he do within the government? Like, what was his position?
Eventually, he ended up as a director of department in Ministry of Art and Culture. So he was one of the commies running the Polish museums, Polish organizations that supposed to be pro-socialism and pro-communism and all this culture and art. So it has to be a certain way that was good for.
So in that first 7 years, was there a different path because you guys were the children of somebody who was an official? Like, did you guys go to a better school or a different school, or did you guys have any preferential treatment other than like the stores?
We didn't go to different schools, but everybody knew who my father was, so we had a preferential treatment, and we had access to different stores. We had the lunches, dinners, or food basically that was provided by my father's work, because I remember we were working with these cans of food just to bring it home, because that was the not Komitet Centralny, it was Polska Zjednoczona Partia Robotnicza, Polish Workers' Party, whatever, however it translated in English. So my father was working in this regional headquarters. He was there, one of those officials. So we had also either very free food, or we pay very little for the food, which was at that time very expensive and scarce.
Yeah. So
we didn't feel any of that at the time.
I want to take a second to talk about something near and dear to my heart, and that is a staunch supporter of this podcast, which is Bub's Naturals. The hat sitting in front of me here on our coffee table here in the studio belonged to Glenn Doherty. His nickname was Bub. I did 2 platoons with him, and his childhood best friend and another colleague of theirs, Sean is the best friend, TJ is their colleague, started Bub's Naturals, which is a collagen and MCT oil company in Bub's or Glenn's honor. And, for me, it's an absolute honor to be sponsored by and working with a company that, was started in the honor of one of my closest friends and a guy that I went to war with. And, the Bub's brand is not only super quality, collagen powder as well as MCT oil powder, but they also give back to the Glenn Doherty Memorial Foundation. They donate proceeds from their product sales to the Glenn Doherty Memorial Foundation, which, to me just furthers the mission set on Veterans Day, they give 100% back. So I do believe it's the best collagen on the planet. I like to mix it in with morning coffee. The MCT oil powder, the same thing. It mixes in very easy. It tastes great, and it just kind of adds everything that you want to start your day off from a brain health standpoint, from joint support, gut support. MCT oil and collagen are two components, especially as we age, that are integral components to health. And so to be able to work with Bubs Naturals and be able to work with them and sponsor a product that number one is a high quality product, and number two is so near and dear to my heart and to the Mic Drop podcast for who it was started for and what it stands for. It's just it's an amazing place to be. So it is Whole30 approved. It's sport certified, so you're not going to run into any problems with that. And I will say that right now they're offering 20% off if you go to bubsnaturals.com and use the Mic Drop code. So I really highly encourage you to try it out, incorporate it into your day-to-day for joint health, for brain health, for cognition, for gut health, and to support an amazing organization that does a lot of things in Glenn Bubs' honor. So go to bubsnaturals.com. Mic Drop is the code, 20% off. All right, so I want to talk to you real quick about a product I've been using for a long time sponsor and supporter of the show, Mudwater. Got rid of coffee, switched to Mudwater. It tastes great. I like to mix my Bubs collagen and MCT oil powder with it, a little bit of vanilla drops, and it's fantastic. It's got a host of different ingredients. There's cacao and chai for a hint of caffeine and kind of a hot chocolate type flavor. There's lion's mane for focus, cordyceps to promote natural energy, and both chaga and reishi to support a healthy immune system. It's Whole30 approved, 100% USDA certified organic, non-GMO, gluten-free, vegan, and kosher. They do donate monthly to support psychedelic research, and they have since day one. Go get your free frother and free samples of coconut creamer and sweetener if you go to Mudwater, mudwtr.com/Mike. On that link, you get all the samples, the frother for free, and that's Mudwater, mudwtr.com/Mike for that free frother rather. So it's a great product. I've been using it for a long time. You don't get the upset stomach or the jitters with the tons of caffeine and coffee. And it's a great vehicle to add whatever other supplements you want to throw into your morning routine. That's mudwater.com/Mike. Obviously, after your mom and dad divorced, then it was very different. Prior to that, in that time, were there ever times like because you had access to food that you'd like smuggle it to school and hook other kids up? Or
that was when I became poor, when we did not have the food. Yeah. So after our father left, all this ended too. So my mom, to feed us, she had to wake up every morning around 3:30, 4 o'clock, and wait in line for maybe 2-3 hours. And the line sometimes were around the block. I mean, that was like huge line. And, fights sometimes break out because somebody was trying to get in the line and the people just like, hell no. So if my mom was not lucky, sometimes, well, actually she was not, when she got to the end of the line, the bread was sold out, so we didn't have anything to eat. We didn't have so I've always grown something. My brother, he learned very quickly how to make French fries, so he was cutting the potatoes, and I didn't like French fries. So then my sister, she was doing something else. I was just the only one who really didn't do much. But I find out pretty quickly that I can, how to say it right, because I got beat up for it too before. The way it is, I could extort sandwiches from the rich party members. Like I mentioned earlier, pretty much in school you knew who is party member, whose parents are party member, who is a rich kid. And so I noticed too that they are bringing like the sandwiches like I used to eat before my father left. So I figured out one day, because our sandwiches usually was bread with like warm water and sugar or tea. Like pour the tea, like a concentrated tea on bread and pour sugar on it. And when we were fancy, we had we had the sour cream on it. Sour cream with sugar. Oh, there was. I still like this. I still like put the bread in sour cream, sprinkled with sugar, maybe a bit cinnamon sometimes if I want to be fancy.
Yeah.
And here we go. So I like that. So I figured out very quick that there are these kids who are children of party members. They bring like awesome sandwiches. They have like ham, the lettuce, tomatoes, all that stuff, and there's mayonnaise. I mean, all the goodies that like I used to eat something like this, but not more. So I remember I just lost it one day. I woke up to the little kid. I mean, he was bigger than I am, but I woke up to him and said, like, I grabbed his sandwich and just like bite it. It's like, this is really good. He's like, what are you doing? I said, I'm eating your sandwich. Yeah. But I tell you what, tomorrow you bring 2. Yeah. So I just tear it in half. I gave him half to be fair. I say, I eat this half, but tomorrow you bring 2 sandwiches. If you don't, you ain't going to eat your sandwich because I will be eating your sandwich. And I was kind of a bit surprised, but actually he seeked me out in the class and said, hey, I have a sandwich for you. I said, okay, wow. Thank you. So from then on, he was bringing 2 sandwiches. Yeah. And it worked pretty good until eventually we got a little bit in trouble, but that was after I was kind of bullied in class because I thought that my mom is teaching that school and I'm attending that school. Usually in Poland you couldn't do it, but because our father left, so they allow my mom, when we were kids, for me to go to that school where she was teaching. So I thought my shit doesn't stink. I was like, yeah, bring it on. So I was bullying kids up there. And that's, I remember the kid, and still breaks my heart. We call him all kinds of names. He was like a skinny kid, sometimes not very clean. And one day, because by this time I was traveling through the bus to my apartments in other part of Zielona Góra. So we just walk together. Usually I beat him up, or I just like being mean to him. I just rough him up or call him names. Again, Poland is different now. I'm talking about times that are gone forever, I hope. And just from curiosity, I say like, well, where do you live? I say, I live across the street in this old building from before the Second World War even. So I said, well, let me see how you live. And I walk up there, and dude, there was just like a table, 1 chair, 1 bed, and the sink was the one that, like in the janitorial places, you have this mop and stuff all stuck in it. It was dirty, it was leaking. It's like, so where's your food? I said, what food? We ate food. We eat food every day. I said, okay, where do you sleep then? Well, I sleep in this bed with my mom. Okay, so where do you eat? I see 1 chair. Well, I sit on my mom's lap. Or sometimes I stand up. And where's your mom? Oh, she's at work. She's coming usually around 8 o'clock in the evening. So I was like thinking about, damn, I think I'm poor, but I'm not. And I thought, I'll help you out at least. Because I noticed that too, that this kid was I never seen him eating, or I seen him eating in the corners, like quickly. And then I already knew that he's poor, because in Poland, nobody wants to be seen as poor at the time. So people who did not have anything, they didn't eat, they pretended that they already ate, or they were hiding their food. Like I was hiding too, my poor sandwiches. So I knew what he was doing. He was doing the same thing I was doing. I was just hiding. I didn't want other people to see that I don't have a lot. So I said, I'm going to hook you up. I'm going to get another sandwich. And that was just, for a couple of days, I was looking who else is bringing those sandwiches, who was the commie child. And told him the same thing. You're going to bring 2 sandwiches. And if you don't, then you won't eat it. I will eat your sandwich. So he did, but he complained to his mom, his parents. I could have like a couple of kids with this. And one time the parents came in. I already knew, because kids said, hey, his mom and dad, these commies are coming. And so I just grabbed that kid and dragged him in the bathroom and just beat the shit out of him and told him, look, you say a word, I will fuck you up. And that was the first grade. Yeah. And he didn't. So what happened is parents walk into the class. So who is the one stealing your sandwiches? He just look here. It's like, oh, it's not here. All right, so must be maybe older class. Okay, so they went through entire school and looking for the guy stealing his sandwiches, and they refused to give him 2 sandwiches. They knew that he's being extorted from sandwiches. So what we did, we tear up his sandwich. So parents didn't know that he didn't eat the sandwich. He didn't only half of it. The other half, the other kids ate it. Kind of like Robin Hood, but again, that was the times. Am I proud of it now? No, maybe there were some other ways, but we were hungry, we were kids, and maybe today have different resolve to it. But at that time, it was just survival.
It sounds like a brutal way to grow up. Do you ever share shit like that with your kids when they complain about the chicken nuggets not being the right flavor or whatever?
No, they really don't know much about. They didn't even know that I was Navy SEAL until just I think recently.
How old are they?
My son is 13 and a half. My daughter is 14 and a half.
Wow.
So until recently, they didn't know it. After the book was published, where I couldn't hide it. Well, it was not hiding. I just was never talking about it. I want them to have grow up as Americans without any baggage from my past. So for me, it was important that they just not worry about that stuff, but just learn, be good American citizens, and speak perfect English.
Do they have
I
any
can't do
accent?
it. No, hell no. I mean, I would be. I'm working on it. I make sure that there is no accent in it. When they mock me, sometimes they like, "Oh, Dad, you say this is like that," It's like I was like, okay, don't do that again. I'm your parent. I'm not your friend. I'm your friend, but I'm your parent first. So
that's funny. So going back to during that time growing up, what was the school experience like in terms of the education? I know you mentioned kind of a twist in terms of socialism and communism being kind of an undertone there, but like how would you compare it to American school as far as what's being taught and how long the days are and that kind of stuff?
So there's 2 things. There's like one of the things I want to just sort of jump right back at me when you ask that is in Poland they never taught 73 genders and all the other crap. That just like is ridiculous. But there were wars because they twisted entire Polish history. Everything that you were learning at the angle of accepting the limitation of socialism, accepting the being poor. Now they call it, like my mom used to call it, the sensitization and normalization of poverty and hard times. So for like my parents and grandparents, they knew the good Poland from before Second World War. Well, it was not that good too. They were poor people, but they knew the freedom. So you cannot pull the freedom out of people who already experienced it. You just have to wait them out. So what they did is they were educating kids forcefully, pretty much with the ideology that they want the kids to grow up, and they were just waiting for people like my mom to fade out from society, to basically die out, and they can build a good socialism. So, and this is I'm saying this because this is my I know it from conversation with my father, who actually earlier he was a communist. So that was their idea to implement the socialism and eventually go into full communism. But please remember that none of the countries in Eastern Bloc, none of them were ever communist country, not even Soviet Union. They were all socialist state. Even the Soviet Union, there's a union of socialist republics, not communist republics, if you look at their names. So that people get enamored here with communism and socialism. Socialism is good, communism is bad. Well, no, the communism is like a fairy tale that you cannot even you cannot implement it. But socialism, people try. And every time they fail, there is a new group come in and say, well, this group didn't know how to make socialism. We know better. We're going to do good socialism. So my father, I think, went like, they call it democratic socialism. So my father went through quite a few of this upheaval when he has to actually, but he was very adamant about squashing that freedom yearning of Polish people, even by force or even by killing the people. That was not, we can come back to it, to those conversations later. We actually went to live with him for 1 year. I lasted only 1 year. But So at that time, everything was skewed towards the socialism. You were required to participate in all these socialist meetings, glorifying socialism and communism, socialist heroes, when in reality now we are learning that they were actually the drunk bums or outright bandits. So, but that's how it was presented to us as a great hero, and we worship them.
So, how much of the school day was dedicated towards kind of conditioning?
Every day, if everything, even with Polish language, you learn Polish language, you learn at the angle of these great heroes of socialism, or these workers who are so support socialism that they sacrifice their lives sometimes to make the socialism happen, or other kids. We're learning about the kids that denounce and snitch on their parents when they spoke not in favor of socialism, so police actually can go and arrest them. So so those history was also, the history was totally twisted. I never knew about the real Polish hero fighting on the western side with allies, the Polish fighter squadron, the top fighter squadron in Battle of Britain. That was the top scoring squadron, was Polish Squadron 303. There are movies being made about it now. But at that time, we really didn't know much about it because it was hidden. Everything that happens on the Russian side, the army that the Russians built, indoctrinated and pushed through Poland, they were all the heroes who were learning about it. The schools were named after these heroes, which we later learned that they were either bombs or they were druggies or the snitches or just outright bandits. And my school was the school of General Świerczewski, which we know he was one of the oppressors who was hunting down Polish freedom fighters, murdering them. And also he was drunk and bandit, and so eventually he got shot. And thanks God he did. I mean, I would piss on his grave if I could. And then, so people like this were glorified at schools. So from the very beginning, you were learning to accept socialism. If something was like, we have empty shelves in the stores, right? You cannot buy. You have to wait 4 hours to buy bread. They will tell you that our economy is awesome, that the Polish economy is one of the strongest economies in the world, that we have everything. And sometimes the shortages are caused because people make too much money and they just buy too much. So we need to, they claim that they need to impose some restrictions, what they can buy and how much they can buy. And of course, then the food rations came in. And the food rations were explained to us that it's necessary because people are just not cooperative. People do not, people are bad in general, and these people will buy everything out so other people can't eat it. So we need to restrict what they can buy and how the ration cards came about.
Wow. In school, was there math, arithmetic, science also?
Oh yeah. I think that was on the very good level. That's something that I remember I learned up there in elementary school. Algebra, mathematics, that I think here the college kids are learning. Yeah. So the physics, algebra, chemistry, science, and geography was, I think, one of the strongest points of Polish education at the time. We were pretty much well educated in it. But there was another thing too, and maybe I can mention about it. In 5th grade, everybody was had to start learning Russian language. So there was in 5th grade of elementary school, Russian language was introduced. And I remember, I had a hard time with math at the time, maybe with even Polish language. I was not a good student. I was not by no means. But now they throw the Russian language, more homework for me to do, right? So I kind of piped up to teacher, why do they teach us? Why do we have to learn the language of our occupiers? Because my grandmother, my both grandmothers, this is how they refer to Russia, occupiers, political occupiers of Poland. So I piped it up. Very quickly the teacher woke up, grabbed me by the ear, twist my ear and pick me up, as the methods of in Poland at the time. Yeah. The teacher actually could spank you. So grabbed me by the ear, walked me out of the class to school principal, and they put me in the corner. The principal called police. I was like, what? And then police on the way to school, to my school, they because I was working I was already I was older, 5th grade. I was in the different school that my mom was teacher. So they went pick my mom. They detained my mom. They brought her to school and there was 2 officers in uniform and 2 without. Those secret police, and they secret state police, and they started yelling at us. They started threatening my mom that if she does not instill more love to socialism, the communism in me, we will be taken away from her. Not only me, but my siblings. And we will place in the state custody, and state will take care of our education the way it should be. So you can imagine the terror of my mom. She cried, but I was just still, I was still processing it. I was like, what just happened,
Yeah.
But later on, from that on, my mom always, every time I was going to school, do not speak politics, do not speak anything, because they're gonna ruin our family. And the communists did ruin quite a few families like that.
Man, it's brutal.
It was brutal.
How long? What was the typical length of a school day? Do you remember?
45 minutes, and then you had a 10 minutes break or 15 minutes break. And you had the classes from, usually they started at 8 o'clock, and you had like 4 or 5 subjects. So around 3 o'clock.
So about similar to here?
Yeah, similar to here, 45 minutes.
Did you guys? Yeah. Did you guys have recess, go outside time, play? Or did you play any sports? Were there any sports?
Yeah, there were. I think the biggest one was soccer. I love soccer because I didn't have to have much. I couldn't play soccer on the team because I couldn't afford the shoes, the special corks, shoes, and the uniform. But we're always coming up. Even if we have a rag, we just play the soccer with the rag. Yeah. Sometimes nobody brought a little tiny ball to school. We like soccer. And eventually I got older, I got into boxing. And that's a different story. Yeah.
Well, so after 5th grade, is it broken down where it's elementary, junior high, high school? Is it a similar?
No, it is. You have eight classes in elementary school. I don't know how it's now. Maybe something changed. But that time was 8 classes. Then you go to high school, and high school is 4 years, and then college. And this is in the high school. Actually, in the elementary schools, there were already socialist youth organizations. They kind of like coerce you into joining it. Then in the high school, it was even more exponated. Because when you want to go to school, to college, to get a higher education, you were getting extra points for belonging to socialist organization. And if you didn't have it, it was like you couldn't get to college. Yeah. Or your chances were much slimmer than somebody like ardent communist, socialist, or self-proclaimed socialist for 16-years-old kid, right? Yeah. Sounds funny, but it's not really funny because by this time they were growing entire segment of society, the youth, indoctrinated into socialist ideology, communist ideology, and this is something that the communists, like my father, worked very hard to separate them from parents, from the past that was from the freedom.
Yeah, it's fascinating.
Brutal.
Yeah. Was there an emphasis as you got into high school, like the Olympics, as an example, some of the sports like the competition? It's a big deal in Russia. Was there an emphasis national?
Yes.
Or nationality-wise, like focused on certain sports for that competition? Were there paths for like, oh, this kid is a standout, whatever sport, we're going to funnel him into a national team kind of pipeline?
Yes, there was a policy, but even more important than his abilities in sport was his political views. So there were many athletes who actually were pushed over and to allow these more communist-leaning athletes.
Really?
And it was, even there, were not trusted. In Poland, they didn't get a passport, just go somewhere. They were under control. If they were going to different places, let's say overseas, to football, soccer game, they were watched very closely because the communists were afraid that people will escape, and then tell the truth, what really is going on in socialist states in Eastern Europe. So they were very closely controlled. And I remember there were quite few cases that prominent athletes never came back from this, never came back from these trips overseas. They stayed, they choose freedom. And so that was pretty embarrassing to socialist state. And they watched it very carefully. Yeah. The passport, when you came back, you had to return the passport. And most of the time, actually, when you were going on overseas trip for the game, you didn't have a passport. Your handlers had the passports.
Wow.
Because they were so afraid. If at that time, if they was allowed, I think the Poland or East European countries would be empty. People would just escape, would run away. People risk life and were being shot going trying to escape to the borders, to the freedom, to the West.
This is in the 80s, right?
It's 1960s, 1970s, 1980s. Okay. 1960s, they still were hunting people who were fighting on in underground, who were fighting Germany, the Adolf Hitler's Germany, in Polish underground army. So they were those freedom fighters. Please remember that Poland at the time had the largest underground army of entire Europe. So there was, and it was very well controlled from London, from the Polish government on exile. That's how it was called in London. So the communists, when they took over, they eradicated anything of it. You couldn't learn at schools anything. Everything was twisted. Many of these people, those officers and fighting in underground army, were executed, were murdered by socialist regime. The good example of this is Captain Pilecki. He was an Polish officer fighting from the beginning of the war. Later he went into underground. He was fighting with the Polish Home Army, and he volunteered for one-way mission to infiltrate Auschwitz and write the reports, send the reports back to what is going on. Because at that time there was perception that West does not understand the atrocities that are being committed in Adolf Hitler's Germany. So he volunteered to be caught. He surrendered himself to Gestapo. They sent him, of course, to Auschwitz. He not only wrote the report, he organized the entire resistance group, I think with hundreds of people involved in it. But eventually he had to escape. So it was very unlikely, but he did. He managed to escape. So he was already a hero in Poland on so many levels. He participated in Warsaw Uprising in 1944, where people were able to liberate big swaths of the city from Germans, only to be left out by the Russian army. They just were watching it when the Warsaw was bleeding out. And eventually, after 3 months, that uprising collapsed. Yeah. But they were able to liberate quite a lot, big swaths of the city. So what happened to him, he was fighting in the Warsaw Uprising, Captain Pilecki. He was hunted down by communists because he was inconvenient. He knew the real heroes of Poland. He knew how the West works. He knew the freedom. They just murdered him in the prison. They killed him. Wow. Today nobody knows where his grave is, where he was buried. And please remember, even today, people are still finding mass graves of socialist regime in Poland. It's not only in Poland, but I think last time they found 4 or 5 people murdered by socialist regime in Poland, only like 2 years ago, I think. There was something like that. The press was writing about it. So there's many Polish patriots were murdered by socialist regime and buried in unmarked graves or buried somewhere where nobody can find them today.
What year were you born?
1960. So that was 15 years after Second World War.
60?
Think about it. No, 1960. Yeah. 60. Yeah.
Wow.
I'm 63 years old.
Dude, that's fucking crazy. I wouldn't have thought. I didn't realize you were that much older than me. Not,
But think about it for a second. So I was born in shorter time span from the Second World War, those 15 years, than we are today from September 11.
Yeah.
And how fresh the September 11 is still in our minds, and especially the fight that we took to the enemies.
Yeah, that's wild to think about it in
Yeah, no kidding. Yeah.
All right, so going back to some of the early years, from the time that your parents got divorced, I know you went to live with your dad, but from 7 until you went to live with him, did you spend any time with him or very much time?
No. Actually, he was avoiding us. So when he didn't move to Warsaw right away, so he just moved away from us. So we knew where he was living, and I remember we didn't have a warm clothes, right? So my mom stuffed the newspapers sometimes in my jacket and kept me warm. At least I got sweaty because I got tired running or something. But so my mom. She knew that we are cold. Winters at the time in Poland were very cold. So my mom asked my sister, my youngest sibling sister, to go to my dad and ask him for more child support because he was always paying late or not paying at all, skipping months, and or buy us the jackets, like warm jackets for winter. But he just told her to go away because that's my mother's responsibility to feed us and clothe us, and he's not going to pay even a penny more. So just go away. So we just say, well, fuck him. And then me and my brother sometimes we used to go and paint. Like Nazi swastika on his door because he was a Nazi. He was a Nazi, National Socialism. Well, they call it in Poland democratic socialism, but it was not much different from Nazi, National Socialism, from Nazi. Same censorship, same repressions, same persecution of political opponents, same prisons, except by concentration camps, because they had concentration camp in Poland in 1940s or early 50s, which they can read of it. Then it became political prisons. So they changed the name, but
yeah. So you get into high school, and then at what point did you go live with him? Actually, before you answer that, I'm curious. Just throughout all of not just high school, but elementary school into high school, was America spoken of, taught to you about, and
a lot?
How was it?
America was always my mom say, look. If you the real freedom, you need to look up to America. Why we cannot be? And that is the question that my mom was asking. I keep asking later. Why can Poland be free like America is? Why can we be in Poland like Americans? And people were yearning for the freedom. But please remember, every 6 years, socialism have this upheaval that people finally got too hungry, too cold, too tired. So they say, well, fuck it. If they shoot, they shoot. So they move on the streets in protest. They were shot. So they were shot. Many people were killed every 4 or 5 years. Then the new communist group came in and said, okay, these people that shoot at you, they are bad. So we're gonna execute them. We're gonna persecute them, and we are the good guys. So we're gonna build the right socialism. And 5 years later, the same story.
Yeah.
And the new group comes in. We're going to shut this guy. We're going to hang this guy. We're going to persecute these guys. And we're going to build the right socialism. And every 1956, 1970, 1976, and eventually culminated in 1980 and martial law in Poland.
But from an education standpoint, or like the way that the state run education system, was America presented or taught to you guys in school?
Very negative place.
Like what kind
always. So in my home, America was always cherished. My grandparents, even from my father's side, they cherished America. They talk about it. But in the government, America was that evil, was that the bourgeoisie, they call it. They call it the capitalists. So in Poland, actually, the word capitalism became like a synonym of evil. That's how they were presenting it to us, to kids. So there was a very negative place that people in America are poor. They are uneducated. They are getting beat up. Especially black people are getting attacked for no reason and beat up. And people live on the streets. They live under the bridges, in the tents. And they are poor. They have nothing to eat. I was like... wait a minute, we can't eat, we have nothing to eat, our shelves are empty. This is not the images that we actually see from people coming from visiting the West. This is why they wanted to restrict any trip to the West. So they say that that's why the America was always the evil. It was the great Satan. It was the great Satan. Israel was the little Satan and big Satan. America was always the big Satan. Germany, England, any other Western countries were smaller Satans, but they were all Satans to communists.
Wow. All right, so you get into high school, you do a little bit of boxing. At what point did you have a conversation with your dad and end up going to live with him?
Well, we were so poor, and my mom just couldn't. As we grow up, we wanted to eat more. I could extort sandwiches in the elementary school, going to high school, or the older classes. It was a bit more difficult. I mean, how could I justify? I mean, I can smash the kid's face, but it's besides, about these sandwiches, I need to say, if my mom would ever find out that I extort sandwiches from these kids, I would have to pay for them. I apologize, and I think I would be beaten up to pulp. So I had to do it so my mom didn't know it. My mom would not tolerate that stuff. Even there, the life was brutal, but still people had dignity, and my mom was like the pillar, an example for me. Of course, I stray sometimes for the sandwiches, and not only. But so eventually we become so poor that my mom said, okay, I need to just send one of you to live with father. And you are the oldest one, the strongest one. And I was already doing boxing. So I already got into boxing. Actually, that's another story. I'll just come back to it a little bit later. So mom said, you will go to see father. But with the boxing, when I was growing up, I had the problems too, because I was bullied at the beginning, because I thought I'm untouchable, because my mom is a teacher in the same school. I moved to different school, then I became bullied. So what I had to do is find my way to just get away from it. And very quickly I realized that, having that little rebar, like a pipe, steel pipe in my elementary school briefcase, backpack, do wonders. And so when I came, what happened to me was coming back from school, those older kids or stronger kids, they were kicking my ass. And I was like, I'm not going to tolerate this. So I found myself, there was always construction everywhere, like a rebar pipe. And I was like a real small pipe hitter. So they very quick, they learned that if they walk, because in Poland, we live in big apartments, and you have the entrance to apartment, same apartment may have 4 or 5 different entrances, right? Like we call it klatka schodowa. So the word pretty quickly spread that, if you walk behind that guy to kick his ass into because that was the safest place to beat somebody up. On the street, sometimes when kids were fighting, people could yell at you, but most of the time they didn't, but sometimes they did. So in those inside the apartment, in the entrance, like nobody cared, nobody here, just beat the shit out of you. So the rumors was spread pretty quick, that righteously so, that if you walk behind me and walk into that apartment, I will walk out, but for you, the ambulance will come back, because I had no qualms. I hope everybody's still alive from that thing, but I had no qualms to just knock them out straight in the head with as strong as I could. Yeah. So I think some schools cracked on that one. I'm pretty sure they did. Jesus. But there was a life that way, But once the word spread that I'm beating them up pretty badly, they left me alone. Yeah. And then I went back to myself being a bully. Yeah.
And did you? That's when you started to learn to box.
And also, in the city they brought there was a boxing club, pretty good one, in Zielona Góra, and I figured out that I'll just go, and I think a friend of mine asked me, "Hey, you're just pretty good fighting," because I was always fighting in the class too, not only with the rebar only outside on the street, but like in the school and something, I would just beat up people with the fists. And so I said, I'll go sign up. And I went up there, and actually I was pretty good. I didn't have a father at the time. So one time when I got sick, that trainer, his name is Mr. Duda, D-U-D-A. So he came to my home, to my mom, asked about me, if I need anything. So for me, it was like, holy shit, somebody cares. Yeah. And I wanted to appease him so much. I started beating these people, with the gloves this time, beating even more. And I was really good. And he was very proud of me. He always say, "Yeah, you natural, you're really good, So I wanted to show my gratitude. So I was beating them more. And I was becoming really good. Yeah. But then I had to move out to Warsaw to my father. My father moved eventually to Warsaw to higher position, the Polish government. So I was told to go with him. So he came, he picked me up, and I remember we were riding in the train from Zielona Góra to Lodz. He didn't say a word. So I didn't say a word either. I didn't like him anyway. So we walk. I didn't expect it. So we walk. He opens the door, and his wife, at the time he already had a wife, and she had her own kid. She opens the door and said, "Well, he's going with us. He will be staying with us." And I remember the big scream and screeching. What? Yeah. How can you do this to me? I was like, "You fucking bitch."
How big were you at this?
I was not really big. I was just quick, and I had a really good timing with the punches.
Was your dad a big guy?
What's that?
Was your dad a big guy?
Yeah, he was. Now, and before he died, he would be small again, but it's not small. But yeah, he was pretty big. Yeah. At least I remember he was a big. Well, he was kind of tough, but different way. When you talk to him, you would think there's somebody you would like to have as a neighbor, somebody who was very well educated, somebody who was very well spoken. He mastered Polish language, so he was a philolog. I don't know what do you call it here. It's like somebody who studied language, and so he was really good at it. And so yeah, I was not that big, but I was bigger. I was pretty tough at the time.
So you move in with him. His new wife is fucking terrified.
Oh yeah, she's terrified.
So you're kind of off to a rocky start.
Yeah, and then so she was coming up with some shit that she knew I didn't like it. So she decided and her son didn't have to do it. I had to do it. So took the steel wool. And they had a wooden floor, so I had to do, square by square every week, part of the house to do that. Yeah. And then they put some kind of oil on the top of that stuff. But then little motherfucker shithead didn't have to do it. I had to do it. So I got pissed off, and every chance I had, I beat the shit out of him.
How old was he?
He was I think a year younger than I am.
A year younger.
A year, maybe 2 years younger. Yeah. I didn't care. Even if this guy was 5 years younger, I would beat the shit out of him just for what his mother was doing to me. Yeah. At that time, I wouldn't do it today. Yeah. I'm sure I would find different way to remedy my situation, to make my situation better. But I didn't think how to see. This is the thinking from the socialist communist times. I didn't think how to make my life better. I was thinking how to make his life more miserable. Yeah. And then eventually I started really despising my father. But so this is when those conversations started. I was asking him straight, look, we have nothing. People have nothing to eat. We do, because you have access to the resources that most of the people in Poland don't have it. But I can see empty shelves in the stores. We go in, even you cannot buy sometimes stuff that you want. You go for buy the bread, and bread is not there, and you go up there and you raise a hell. You call this. He was very vicious. If you went to buy the bread and bread was not there, he was obliterating the entire sales force in that store. And it was embarrassing to me, and they knew who he was, so they were just like cowards, yeah, Mr. So, Mr. Dzieran, yeah, we make sure you have a bread. I think they were keeping extra bread when he shows up to just give it to him. They didn't give to other people, so they have 2-3 loaves of bread always hidden. So this is where the conversation started. So how is it? I mean, I read in the press, the TV says how great economy is, and people have nothing to eat. He said, well, and they was people have nothing to eat because they are too greedy. They spend too much money. They want to buy everything. So they buy everything out, and other people have nothing to eat. So what needs to be done, and eventually it was done, the ration cards, so people cannot buy more than their share is. And then I say, well, but what about these people in prison? who don't like communism, because by this time I was already learning from my uncle, from my mother's brother, who was with opposition to socialism. I was listening. He taught me how to listen to Radio Free Europe, Voice of America, BBC. Those stations that were banned in Poland. You could go to prison actually for listening to them, and or be arrested for listening to these stations. So I said, so I already knew a little bit what's going on. I said, so how is it that there's such a lies, and nobody talks about it? Everybody says how great we have. I say, well, this is how it needs to be done, because some people buy too much, but now those people do not subscribe to socialist values. So I say, how do you make them subscribe to socialist values? They're hungry. Well, we're gonna do it first, try to educate them. This is why we educate you and young children. So we need to re-educate these people who experience different political systems. We need to re-educate them. So how do you do it? Well, we give them the chance to accept the socialist ideology. But what if they don't? Well, if they don't, we're gonna ostracize them. Basically, we're gonna cancel them from society. And many artists, many actors, writers just disappear from the shelves, from the public life like this, because they just maybe couple lines not in favor of socialism, where they posted in their working, their writing, or the monuments that they built were not pro-socialism too much, so they were canceled. I say, okay, and but he says that if that doesn't work, we have still prisons, and for those like ardent anti-socialism, communism, we need to physically eliminate them, because people do not understand. These people do not understand the benefits of socialism and communism, and we cannot convince them. So we need to eliminate them. But our task, he said, his task was to make people realize how great socialism is, and that was I think where all the evil was coming from. This type, because my father was not even the most ardent communist, right? But there were some people who were outright murderers, and they were implementing that system by enemies, even by murder. And the best example is, again, I mentioned about the Polish Squadron 303, the top scoring squadron in Battle of Britain. One of the Polish aces, the top scoring Polish ace, Stanisław Skalski, after returning to Poland, was locked up because he was an inconvenient citizen. He knew too much about the freedom. So they locked him up. They sentenced him to death. So it was commuted eventually. But there was quite few of those pilots from Battle of Britain. Oh, few, I would say many. Soldiers fighting in the West, liberating, fighting in the battle at Arnhem. Fighting, the submariners. Poland has, I think, four active submarines in the West. They were being arrested. They were being executed. And in 1962, I think, was last secret execution of the Polish freedom fighter from the Home Army. 1962. I was still alive. They were still hunting these people and still murdering. Yeah. And then it became less, and there was very often there were show trials, but then it became like quiet killing. 1960s, 1970s, it was quiet killing. You just disappear and you were gone.
Wow. Your dad, I know as a high school kid, your perspective on it is going to be difficult to probably wrap your mind around it, but now, looking back on it, do you think that he actually believed what he was saying, or was he just towing the company line, do you think?
I don't know. I think he believed.
Because to me, there's like
or he wanted to believe. I would say he wanted to believe. But he seen the failures. He seen it was failing, and he was frustrated that people are not buying into socialism. So the frustration eventually resulted in him being ready to arrest these people, or even accepting killing them.
To me, there's got to be like a cognitive dissonance that exists. If, like, right, he's telling you that there's no food because some people are buying too much. Like, he has to know that that's not accurate, though. Right? So, like, the things that he's trying to tell you to justify why socialism is good, but it's not working.
I think he was such a proponent of socialism that when he seen these failures, there's no socialist country that ever succeeded. So when he seen these failures, he was trying to justify it, that this is not his fault. This is not fault of the Communist Party running that socialist system. This is fault of the people. I think for him it was easier to accept that, accept that the ideology that he subscribed to is utter failure.
Yeah, okay. You only lived with him for a year?
For a year, yeah. Then eventually get, my beating of this other kid kind of became obvious, and she couldn't tolerate anymore that, and she insisted that I'll go back, and my father said that also that's best. It's best that you just go back. And I wanted to go back. I didn't want to stay there.
Was the food at least good?
Like, the food was good. The food at that time we had the food from overseas, from everywhere. I mean, there's like I ate like I never ate before.
Yeah. So you went. I didn't
have to rub other communist bastards from sandwiches. Yeah. Well, I have to say one more thing here, because I was called out on how dare those kids were just as innocent as you, just because they had a party member's parents. Why did you were taking on the kids? And my answer to it is, well, I was not taking on the kids. I just wanted to get that sandwich. And again, I'm not proud of it today. We live in different society today. Poland is different. If somebody would attempt to do it today in Poland, most likely would end up in prison. Or at that young age, there would be serious trouble for him and his parents for allowing that. Yeah. So this thing don't happen in Poland. But please remember, there was shortly after the Second World War that people were still skewed by the violence, by the atrocities committed in front of their eyes. So many of these things that today are not acceptable at that time were acceptable.
Yeah, that makes sense. When you went to live with them, obviously you switched schools, right?
Yes.
Was it a very different?
It was a little bit different because in Warsaw they were running gangs that they were not so prominent in Poland. So I had a first running with these kids when I think one of them at that time I didn't know that they were organized groups, was smarting off to one of the girls. So after my beating that I got from my mom for kicking a girl when I was in the first grade, I was always trying to be very supportive for girls. And so I went up there and just knocked him out. I broke his nose. And that time I was doing boxing too, so that's not a big deal. So they came in, and the whole group came in, and but they were not very big. So I said, well, they may beat me up now, but I will just get every single one of them motherfuckers, and I will obliterate them. I fucking kill them if I had to. They kind of knew, so they kind of let me along, but they say, hey, you just bring us the wine. We drink the wine together, and then you'll be off. I say, "Fuck you! I'll bring you a wine. I kill you." But then, I was thinking like this. They work the way I used to work, so they pretty much the mentality is very similar. So I said, "Okay, I'll bring you a wine," and I brought them the wine. And
where did you get it? Steal it from home or what?
No, actually, I had to wait at the store with wines until somebody older, but not too old, comes in and buys me a bottle of wine. So I said, hey, can you buy me a bottle of wine? Yeah. How old are you? Well, I'm 14. Yeah. Fuck off. Yeah. But then some of the drunk comes in. Yeah, give me extra $5. I'll get you a wine. It's like, so okay, so I'll give you extra $5. You brought me a bottle of wine.
Well, so in that environment, how did you generate cash? Did you have a job or how? It seems
no, I didn't have a cash, but what we were doing is. We're in elementary school. I was just wrapping up the bubble gum, the bazooka bubble gums. They were like a currency in our age then. So we were chewing the bubble gums, but buying the cheap candies and just wrapping the bag again this bazooka paper candies and selling them for the same price like it was a bubble gum. There was because they didn't make that bubble gum in Poland. There was you could get them only if your family from the West or somebody sent it to you. They were very rare. So when we get like hands on it, like maybe still some younger kids, we just ate the bubble gum, chewed the bubble gum, but without the cheap candies and sell it that. And my father, my father was well off, so I was getting some money from him just for my own personal use. So I was privileged kid at the time, at least for a year. Yeah, it abruptly ended. But I remember even before I went to my father, there was like I want to just maybe show convey the atmosphere. In Poland at the time, fighting on the streets or being drunk on the streets, well, people just show you with the fingers, but like, oh, that guy, he's drunk or they are fighting there. If you fight on the one side of the street, people just go across the street, walk around and just go back. And but basically nothing happened. Seldom ever somebody called police unless somebody was full of blood laying unconscious. So there was nothing wrong. And this is where I grew up. So I remember one day somebody beat up my younger brother. I remember when he showed up from school, we thought he was run over by the car. I mean, his head was square like a die, like the dice to you roll. So from those bumps like this, he didn't have a straight head. I said, who did that? He didn't want to say, but eventually he said it was the guy named, they call him, he said, his name, he was from older class, but they call him Beku, like a bull. And because also he was known for bullying kids around, and he went to run into my younger brother and beat him up. I was sick then, so I said, Mom, I'm going to school tomorrow. She already knew what I'm going to do. So I was doing boxing at the time. She said, absolutely not. You have a prescription from the doctor, you have that you stay home, you lay in the bed, you don't go anywhere. So I had to agree that I will not go, but as soon as she left to work next morning, I dressed myself up, I still had a fever. I ran up to the school, and I have to look along for the guy because he was almost half the head taller than most of the kids. He was full head taller than I am, and head and a half taller than my little brother. So I just walked up to him. I just nailed the motherfucker. He flew halfway through the flight of the stairs. He fell down and unconscious. I was like, that was a good shot. And then, the kids started coming in and the teachers came in and he was unconscious. They carried him out to the ambulatory, to the room where the nurse was. And I was just like, fuck it. Then I go home now. Yeah. Case closed.
How old were you at that point?
I think I was 13 years old. 13.
So this was before you went to live with your dad?
Before I went to live with my father. So but the funny story is because I went home and Mom came in and was like, you were laying in the bed? I said, oh yeah, I'm good. Until in the evening, ding dong, the ring, the door rings, and I hear a kid crying and then parents screaming at my mom. And just they barged into our house. He could kill my son. Look at this. He might lose still his eye. I look at it. The guy, his eye is fully closed. The whole head is look like the tennis ball, big, and you cannot see his eye. But I was thinking, a fucking good shot. It was a good shot, I'm pretty good now. I feel even more confidence. I can beat more people up. And then so my mom just called my younger brother and said, you see this guy? Look, he's one head and a half smaller than your son, and your son beat him up. So my son kicked your son's ass. Good thing. Yeah. And he will do it again. He's going to knock his teeth out and fuck his other eye. Get the fuck out of this apartment. I never heard my mom cussing until this one time. Wow. She threw them out. Oh, I got beaten for disrespecting her wish and that I went to school without her permission. So I was told to lay in the bed, but I went and beat this guy up. So I got beat up by my mom after that. But
that's a trip. What was the medical care like at that time?
Oh, there was almost none. There was free. I had to tell you, just go to free. But now, quality of this care was none. And I give you an example. So I had a kid, I think it was my 8th grade. I lost contact with him later. And he was one of the bigger kids. We were kind of friends. And he disappeared for like 2 weeks. So I said, hey, what happened? When he came back, I said, my mom died. I said, oh, sorry to hear that. What happened? Well, she had a cancer, but they told her that the medicine that they have, she's too old for it. They need to keep it for the younger people, like maybe. She was not old. I mean, she was, maybe 30-something old, but it was too old for that, to give it to her. And she didn't have a connection like my father had. I couldn't use that after, when he left, he wouldn't use anything to help us. I'm very sure of it. But if it was his stepson, he would do it. He would get any medicine that was needed. So the party members always had the best medicine. They had the best hospitals. Like my father, he had a separate hospital that he could go with the best doctors. But people like my friend and his mom, they let her die because there was not enough medicine.
Wow.
So yeah, that was
rough.
But I didn't know any better. For me, it was like, wow, this is awesome. I'm just sick. For me, I just wanted to be sick, not to go to school. In Poland, you had to go to school unless you had permission from doctor that you can stay in the bed for like 3 days or 4 days. 5 days was like the dream. It's like, oh wow. So we never could get 5 days, but always anything that gets you out of the school was fantastic. Yeah. So because I draw very well, I can make nice drawings. So I said, well, fuck it, I just go create my own, because every prescription had their own stamp. So I say, well, that doesn't look difficult. So I draw doctor's stamp and signs his signature that I don't have to go to school for 5 days. Wow. And it worked. I never got caught with it. Would I do it today? No, hell no. I would not allow my kids even to dwell and think about it. But at that time,
Did you guys have a TV?
Not until I was, I think, 10 years old. We had a TV, but it was broken. My mom could not afford to fix it. Yeah. So eventually, somebody seen that we are always asking to go to the friends to see some movie or something. And, sometimes my mom always say, do not ever ask that. You don't impose yourself on other people. And so I was always waiting for somebody to invite me, say, hey, I have this TV. Did you watch that? Did you watch it, this movie? I was like, well, no, I don't have a TV. I was like, okay, so come watch with me. So sometimes we were able to go and sit down in the room and watch with some other families. And later on, my mom fixed the TV. So I was watching. It was 2 channels. One was only for 4 hours, and one was going from, I think, 8 o'clock. One was coming from, I think, 5 o'clock, 4 o'clock till 2300. And one channel was for 2 hours or 3 hours in the mornings.
And was it state-run media stuff?
Yeah, everything was state-run.
So there wasn't shows on or anything?
Well, there were shows, but there were shows approved by the censorship.
Yeah. Wow.
So if they did not approve, you didn't see it. If there was a movie made, there were quite a few of those at the time, that later on the Socialist Party reviewed that. And they had a special office for that, part of that. I don't know if it was a part of the party. It was the office designed actually to screen everything at the angle. If this is favorable for socialism, neutral or negative. Neutral, well, maybe you get published. Negative, to trash, burn it. And everything that was positive towards socialism was exponented and published.
Yeah.
And same with the shows, with the theaters. They had a censor sitting in the theaters in Poland and watching so some actors doesn't sleep. People hated socialism, so they were always saying something like how to say, so let's say this communist, he's a murderer. So they didn't call him murderer. People call him great, some funny names so. The officially, you couldn't say anything. It was a very benign word, but everybody knew that means that Communist Party member, and so they were screening for these words too. And if you say something like, let's say there was Joe Wiśniewski, right, some Communist Party member, but people laughing at him because he was stupid and obese and apparatchik. So they give him a name, let's say Mr. 2x4. So sometimes even to the theaters, sometimes in the press, people like to slip this type of saying, right? So he doesn't say that he is a party member idiot. They call him 2x4 or something. Or they call him like something that is benign.
Yeah.
But everybody in Poland knew that what it means. That means that fucking idiot, communist. So they had actually in the theaters, sitting with censors, sometimes visiting and watching and writing if some word was used like this or was improper presentation of socialism, and they shut down the whole thing.
Man, that's incredible. The just the contrast between what things were like there versus how it is here, which kind of is a segue into you come back from your dad, you go back to living with your mom, you finish high school.
Mm-hmm. Well, the high school is another thing. It's good. It is good example of how socialism works. So with my grades at the time, there was no chance in hell I could get to this like very prominent high school with electronic background. So my father just went up there and said, okay, here it is, you go to that school. And there was very few people that could get into that school. To były liceum, the name of it was Liceum Ogólnokształcące Kasprzaka. So
that sounds easy to pronounce.
Yeah, so there was a high school that was supported and backed by the electronic powerhouse in Poland at the time. They produced like all the electronics and everything. So if you go to that school, you already had a guaranteed job in that factory at least, but there's so many more opportunities. And it was very hard to get to it, but just one visit my father in that school, I don't know what he told them. I think he pretty much terrorized them and told them that I need to go to that school. And I ended up in that school. I lasted long. I didn't last long, one year, because my father kicked me out eventually. So.
Yeah. So when you came back, what was the process between coming back from your dad's house, ending up as a political prisoner, and then ultimately making your way to the United States?
So there was not that, at that time I was not as much political, I was just bully. And though I already seen the falsehood, the lies of socialism and communism. So that's, at that time I, again, was not very political, but my uncle, his name was Uncle Adam. He was my mom's brother. He was, I think, very prominent, opposing socialism, communism. He knew the lies because he knew the lie from before. And what he, again, Poland was not a communist country. It was a socialist state. You could have your own business too. Of course, everything was controlled by the socialist government and by the communists, like my father in Poland. So he built himself the factory building bricks and cinder blocks. And he was so good. He worked so hard. The quality of his work was so high that people stopped buying from the government factories because they were such mostly. They were the most prominent factories, right? That you can have like a very small on the side with permission from communists own business. So he started building with such quality that people stopped buying there. Everybody wanted to buy from him, so he expanded. So they came to him. First the apparatchiks, the party members came to him and said, "Hey, look, you are hurting businesses, the government businesses. You produce too much. So we want you to scale down a little bit." He said, he can do it because he cannot afford it. He has he bought himself a truck, and so he can distribute his products, his bricks, and he said he can't do it. So next thing, the anti-fascist group showed up. So anti-fascist groups in Poland, they were just like loosely gathered. There's no formal organization. Groups of younger factory workers, students, and they, on their own, supposedly spontaneously try to protect society from Nazism and fascism. So my uncle was very quick called to be a fascist and Nazi because he had his own business. And they told him again, one more time, that he has one more chance to scale down, or he's going to regret that. And he says, just like, I'm not going to listen to a bunch of fucking goons from, So he continued, and they came in, they destroy his machinery, they destroy everything. And they told him, like, when you rebuild it, you need to scale down. My uncle rebuilt it, but did not scale down. So then, there's like my uncle, there was not only he had this type of business. There were other apparatchiks and party members, or most likely, most often, there were people related to party members, so their families. They were doing all kinds of business. So when my uncle stepped in, he took their business away because nobody was buying from these little turds who were just same mentality like communists. They were most likely the communists too, but had family members in the prominent positions, so they thought they are untouchable. So they were hurting, their business was hurting because my uncle was doing so well. So they sent those anti-fascists again, and they beat him up. They destroyed his thing. When he went to police this time, he was arrested. They beat him up too. They already knew who he was, and told him to scale down his business. So he rebuilt it one more time, and the situation repeated itself, and he lost everything.
Wow.
So you could have a business, but as long as the Communist Party approved that. And officially, like, no, there was just the beatings that he got from this anti-fascists, there was like, well, they were spontaneous. We don't know who it was. We can identify them, and they were most likely just protecting the country from fascists and the Nazis. So that's how they justify these illegal, not official groups but we know that they were sponsored, they were instigated by the Communist Party, by the secret police in Poland. They were just like,
Yeah. Well, how old were you when this happened?
When that actually happened, I think I was like maybe 10, 12 years old. Yeah. Because I did not, I've seen him beat up, but I did not, I was too young to comprehend, to understand. But after talking with him, when he eventually tried to explain it to me, he turned me on to the BBC, Voice of America, Radio Free Europe, and then I start kind of like putting things together and maybe understand. And just, one more thing here. This is a very interesting thing. I'm talking about the Radio Free Europe. So check this out. When I retired from military, I moved in the place where Radio Free Europe was transmitted to Poland. Actually, I had the chance to visit, because there's a museum now. Everybody can go visit that station, visit big antenna, visit that place, see all these electronics at the time. So that was incredible for me. It had a totally different meaning for me than for most of the people.
No, I can imagine. Were normal citizens allowed to have firearms?
No. My father did. Yes, my father did. But again, he was his position was special. So otherwise, if you had firearms and you didn't have status of my father or permission for it, you go to prison. You could be actually in 1940s and 50s. You'd be shot and you'd be taken to police station and shot.
Yeah.
So they disarm people. Yeah. See, let me talk about the Second Amendment here, because people say, I hear very often, like in my neighborhood, everybody has a gun. If they come to take my guns, we're gonna put up the fight. I was like, dude, this is not how it happened. This is not how it's going to happen. Most likely they will show up in one of your neighbors, and they show up in full force with the helicopters flying on the top of his house. They come with a megaphone with the lights in the middle of the night. They drag him out of the house. They maybe put some shots in the air, and they confiscate his guns, and they will be so brutal and so violent that I can guarantee most of the neighbors will just sit in their houses. They will peek through the curtains and say, "Oh, I hope they don't come for me." And they will. They will do just one at a time. So having neighbors full of with the houses full of guns, really, that's not the protection. The protection is at the voting stations.
Yeah. Well, I would think that in today's day and age, with so many things being digital and and online, like it would be easier for them to just say, "Oh, you have guns registered. We're shutting your power off, your water off. We're freezing your bank accounts until you fucking put them in." Like they could just squeeze you out that way.
It doesn't have to be that drastic even. Look what happened in Canada. Canada became another Nazi state. This is state not much different right now. When I look what's going on in Canada, it's not much different than Adolf Hitler's Germany. But the Canada is now a good example what can happen if you don't protect freedom. You remember the trackers, right? Mm-hmm. Where they were. So think about that. The Trudeau, that Nazi, went up there and that government, Nazi government, and start shutting down their banking accounts. Yeah. What people did? Start pulling money out. Yeah. Right? So banks start complaining, hey, people are pulling money, we don't have money. Well, but think about it. What would happen if the banks, if people had not banking accounts, but digital money? Yeah. Can you just pull some digital numbers and buy yourself a bread? People could do it in Canada, and this is why they kind of soften up Trudeau and his Nazi government. But please remember that with the digital currency, what if they decide that the digital currency that you earned this month is valid only for 2 months? Yeah. And what do you do then? Can you save money? Most likely no, because if you don't spend them, you won't have them. Yeah. Very dangerous concept, but it's great for globalism, global control of resources. Yeah. And that's so. This is why I'm not worried too much about our country going socialist. I'm worried more about surrendering our sovereignty to socialist state. Whatever these guys under the WHO or whatever guys that use it, they will bring it up, the UN. But giving up our sovereignty is very dangerous, because then we have unelected officials deciding about our lives, whether this is pandemic, the famine, or anything else. Somebody who has no loyalty to America will decide about Americans. Yeah, very dangerous concept.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. So back to your path. You come back from your dad's, you finish high school. Mm-hmm. Then what?
John Paul II came to Poland in 1978. Believe. And funny, even people had so enough of that socialism. They were hungry, they were tired, they were cold, that there was spark that started a firestorm. And so with strikes, with the protests against socialism, eventually people were able to build a trade union in Poland. That was, they call it Solidarity, Solidarność. So they was so powerful, and from the trade union it became social movement. I think 1/3 of Polish adult society belonged to that social movement. Party couldn't stand that, so they had to compromise because they were about to be overrun. So they agreed to legitimize that trade union. They call it trade union, but again, it was there was a social movement more than the trade union. But at the same time, when they say, okay, we're going to negotiate, we're going to work with you, you have an independent trade union, go back to work, guys. And they were making lists of people to be arrested. They were preparing martial law from the very get-go. Mm-hmm. And by this time, my mom got involved in Solidarity. Everybody wanted to belong to Solidarity. There was like a breath of fresh air. Everybody wanted to be part of it. Everybody wanted to put a little bit from themselves to bury that hated fucking socialism and that oppressive system. And my mom got involved, so I got involved too. And so in 1981, in December 13, they already were preparing it for a long time. They imposed martial law. So they start at midnight of that day, of that night, at midnight, they start raiding the houses all over the Poland and arresting the activists, arresting opposition, arresting everybody that they had on that list that they deem is in opposition to socialism. And the way they explain it to us, at the time, because I was nobody prominent, so I was not arrested. I think they came for my mom; she wasn't home, so they left her alone. But they, because they were busy arresting other people, they explained it to us that these people are not arrested. They are not political prisoners. They are just detained temporarily for their own safety, because for their own safety, and also because they could be potentially dangerous to the state. So to protect a Polish state, there was almost insurrection going on. They were already painting the pictures, like they tried to overthrow the government. They tried to murder some of those party activists or party members. So we need to protect the Polish society from these evil people. We need to detain. Some of them maybe not so, they say not so evil, but they could be evil. So they are detained. And so the estimates are from 5 to 60,000 people in one night. But that was just a part. They knew that people were organized again and try to oppose what happened. And then this is where I came with my part. So people start printing underground newspapers, underground bulletins. They start organizing, building radio stations and passing the radio station, the information and news outside of the censorship. And they were bringing also publications from the West. They were smuggling it. They were risking their lives, smuggling from Germany or from Sweden, newspapers or information outside the official censorship. And so me and my friends decide we're gonna do our part. So we start printing a bulletin. It was a 2 pages thing with information like who was arrested, what or what is happening in other cities and stuff. We could get that information. But eventually we got caught, and that gave me 3 years prison sentence.
What were you doing between when you graduated high school in that 3-year period? Were you working?
No, I was working for the Solidarity. I was working in the security part. So what happened is, before the martial law, they tried to make as much disruption. The government tried to incite as much violence as possible. So they were sending these groups of anti-fascists I mentioned earlier about. They were organized. Sometimes they were coerced, factory workers and students, and they were disrupting the meetings from the trade union members. Sometimes they were like, had 200-300 people, and they had the speakers from Solidarity. So sometimes they beat up the speakers, they attack the people, or inside of create like the image that those are Solidarity members who are destroying streets, who are looting, and they were not. They were just those anti-fascists, anti-Nazi groups maintained by the Communist Party in Poland. So I was one of them protecting these people. So
that makes sense. Was the Polish military completely separate, or did they use them for some of these raids, or like what was their?
See, this is something that people did not understand at the time. I knew it, and many of us knew it. Polish military at the time was conscripts, mostly from the conscripts. So people had a false idea that my son is there. Those are our sons. They're not going to shoot to us. Well, that doesn't work like that, because once you get in the government clutches, they'll make you shoot to your parents too. And that's what happened. The military was totally under the control of the party. So the martial law was maintained mostly by military. It was imposed by military. Military tanks came on the streets, military patrols. Of course, they had most of the patrols had quite few military members, secret police, and official police. And they're just walking, they were scouring.
So they were all working together.
Yeah, they were all working together.
Yeah. Okay.
And so that's what was quite not surprising to me.
Yeah.
But it was very surprising to people that these people who were doing biggest protests, they were shooting into the crowd.
Yeah.
It could be their parents, their families. But this is how socialism works.
Yeah. So you get rounded up, you get arrested, you get a 3-year prison sentence. Walk us through what that was like.
Well, so I was arrested when I was working on the Point, where we were printing that newspaper. And I had no really experience with prison, with, I was detained a couple of times just for beating people up, but just like really the fights on the streets were nothing in Poland at the time, so they just let you go and just go away and just maybe kick you in the ass and say, get the fuck out of here and don't do it again. So that was the first time that I just walked in. It was not the first time I seen the gun. I seen the gun before when I was a drunk cop. I was a bouncer in the club. We were bouncers too. There was a reason for we were bouncers. I described it in my book. So he pulled the gun. I didn't know how to use it, but apparently this gun was off safe because when I pulled the trigger, it shoot. But I put it in the air and just shoot everything. They keep shooting until it stopped shooting. Yeah. I had no idea about the guns. I just keep pulling the trigger. That was the first experience with the gun and the first time I seen the guns. But really, at that time, I had no fear of firearms. I really didn't. I just didn't realize how dangerous they are. So when I walk on the Point, I knock on the door. It was on the, I think, second floor. On the third floor. From the bottom, from the top, I hear the boots coming down. It's like the doors open across the door that I was knocking on. The cops came in. Those are secret police. They came out with the guns drawn to my head. And it's like I had like 4 or 5 guns in my head. I said that, so I was like, what do I do? So they handcuffed me. My legs, my hands, they carry me, throw me in the room. I said, okay, now wait. So I was laying like in front of the armchair, just similar like this, but bigger. And the secret police dude was sitting on and keep his feet on my back, and just like just sitting there. He's like a stool, like footrest, yeah. And they wait for like a few hours like this. Nobody showed up. I think they're waiting for like somebody else to show up. Nobody showed up, so they hauled my ass to prison. And my greetings in the prison. There was not a prison. There was the headquarters of secret police in Lodz, in my city. So they throw me in it, and I had no idea. It was dark, so I tried to make my way. Like I see the stamping on people. People are everywhere in the small cell. So somebody say, hey, get the fuck out of here. Just get on the wall and just find a spot and just sit down and wait until they turn the lights on, because there were no windows. So yeah, they turn the lights on. I look around. It's like a cell, maybe big, like from that wall to here, and maybe like the cameras are here to there. In the middle was pedestal. Looked like the bed in our bedroom, right? But it's like there was no mattress on it, just a pedestal. So there was some people sleeping on it. The rest of it just lay around or sit around the cell in between that pedestal and the wall. There was nothing there. So when they brought the breakfast, the dude comes up to me and say, "You new here, so I'm going to eat your breakfast today." It's like, who this motherfucker is? So I just knocked him out. And but then just like, so he will never ask me again for my breakfast. I carefully just kind of like lift his upper lip up and just like knock his teeth, punch his teeth inside, wiggle them out, pull them out. So when I pulled them out, actually, that was the first time I was like, dude, that'll be a nice necklace out of there. So I keep them. And so, he just like came to himself, was bleeding still out his mouth everywhere. And I told him, like, look, I just ate your breakfast. I'm going to eat your breakfast from now. So you go scour around, ask other people. And he's like, I'm going to fuck you up. I'm going to fuck you up. When I'm going, he's going to fuck me up when we go to big prison, because he's the guy who is part of those prison gangs. I didn't give a shit about it. I said, look, I hear one more peep from your mouth, I'm going to knock your lower teeth out. I have a better necklace out of it. And I tell you, I had these teeth. Even when I went I was able to get them to intermediate prison when I was waiting my sentence. And during one of the searches, they found them. It's like, whose teeth are there? I was like, I don't know.
That's wild.
So I don't know what happened to this guy. They moved him out. They took him to ambulatory, I guess, and they didn't say nothing to me, and they moved him, I guess, somewhere else. He didn't come back to that cell.
Yeah.
And I never heard from him again.
Yeah. What was breakfast in prison?
I can't tell you because I don't know myself what it was. There was like it looked like shit, but white, like a whitish, yellowish color. And it was like a consistency of what would be like a rice, but the rice with some sludge. So it was very thick. But what it was, I have no idea. I was hungry, so I ate.
Can you describe the flavor?
I still remember. It was more like rotten vegetables. So that was really like not smelling good.
Yeah, jeez.
But I remember the taste. It tastes like a rotten vegetables.
Yeah. So you go to an intermediate prison and then you get sentenced. Was there a trial, or was it you go in front of a judge?
There was military tribunal, and there was 3 people sitting there. Matter of fact, I think one of them he was about to be prosecuted for his role in these trials. What happened is after Poland became free, they started actually searching for those judges who are sentencing people to death, who are sentencing people to prison. Especially those who are sentencing people to death, they call it judicial murders. That was the charge. So some of them were prosecuted, some of them escaped to the West, and I know Sweden and England are still harboring some of these judges. They are still hiding. One of those from 1940s even, who was actually murdering, there was a woman sentencing Poles for opposition to socialism to death. She escaped to England and she died there. I mean, that bitch should be killed and should be executed, but she got away.
Yeah.
But yeah, there's still if they find the Polish law now says there is no time limit for these murders, for these unjust persecutions. So if they find somebody, they are most likely being persecuted.
Yeah.
Though most of them, these bastards are dead.
Yeah. There's no statute of limitations.
There's no statute of limitation on that.
Yeah. So all right. So for you go in front of a tribunal. I mean, did they just say you're charged of this, you're fucking guilty, and you're going here? Like, did they let you talk?
Yeah, they let me talk, but my attorney, which is actually Solidarity, provided for it. He was actually free. That we didn't have to pay for these defenses. So he says that he tried to shut me down. Said, yeah, he stands up there, and because when I stand up, I say, you fucking bastards, I just lay to them, maybe not calling them names, but I say, well, I fight for freedom, and you guys are what right do you have to judge me? Well, I didn't commit any crime. That's not a crime. And I was thinking that, so my attorney came out. Yeah, you see, he is the young man in Poland. He needs people like this. He stands strong. He's just like his feet apart. And I was listening like, wow, I didn't think about that. That looks good, know. But that's that didn't have much to say. So he said things. I say a little bit before he shut me down. He said things because he explained it to me that I was about to make my case even worse. So they listened to him. They beat me up actually before they brought me to the court. And I remember this is where I stand up. I say, yeah, these goons. I was beat up by these people and so by this police. The dead one, like here, they were sitting in the thing. So the military tribunal guy who was heading military tribunal said, like, well, we don't want to hear about it. That's not the case about. Yeah. It's about your criminal activities. Because I was criminal by this time, according to the Polish socialist law. They want to hear about your criminal activities. And so you might sit down. Yeah. And 3 years.
Yeah. So 3-year sentence, then did you go from there right off to wherever?
No. By this time I was intermediate prison. And I was already causing problems there. And so I ended up with isolation, I think, for 2 weeks. or week, for a week isolation, if I remember. And then at the end of it, in isolation, I think for kicking out the wall. Those like a little cages, but I don't know if there's called cage. It was cage of the. You've seen it in Iraq. They had a fence with the concrete post and then the slabs of concrete, reinforced concrete slid on the top of another, because we had to jump quite a few of those or breach to get to the target. So there was the same thing, the same thing. And so when I was young, I used to train on those. I used to kick them and break them. They were reinforced concrete, so they didn't actually fall apart. They just bent and just fell out of those grooves. Yeah. So when I was doing taekwondo, I practiced that. And then I remember in the lots, in this intermediate prison, I thought I heard on the next cage, what do you call it? I know it's not a cage, it was like a walls built of this concrete thing. And I heard the guy from my case. So I wanted to communicate with him, and the guards were walking on the top of these cages. So when he went to the other end, there's plates in between. They were filled up with like a mud or like something that you could not see through the cracks. So I said, I just kick a little bit. I know that they're flexible. They will move, and I kick this out. I can see if this is him. So when the guard went to the other side, I just jump out. I kick it, but I kick it too strong, and they just fucking fell off and just like broke off the loose. So that's, I think I got I don't remember that. So there I got a punish for that. And then I got a punish for beating up one of the guys up there. So that one, I thought I killed him, but so they pulled him out. I didn't, but he was unconscious. So I got a so-called tiger. I got a tiger. My second punishment was tiger cage. And it was a cell in the cell. So it's a prison cell, but in prison cell is a pedestal. And the pedestal is like a cage, like in the zoo. So when the warden told me I'm going to the tiger cage for that thing, I said, what the fuck, do you have tigers there or what? I was just thinking. And when they walked me into that cell, I burst with laughter because it was so surreal. It was just like almost funny. Yeah. So they just like me, throw me in there, they just locked me up, and I was sitting there. So there was a cage from both sides, from all the sides, like real cage with the rebars like my thumb big, in the cell. And I was just sitting there. So they were pissed because they didn't know what I was laughing, and I didn't intend to laugh, but I just burst with laughter because it was so fucking surreal. And I was just sitting there. And after 2 days, they said, okay, you come out. I was supposed to be there a week, so I was like, why is that? So you're going transport. So this is when they put me in the prison to Hrubieszów. That was the harshest prison in Poland at the time. And so when they walked me out they gave me my things back. So when they walked me back to the truck, there were already other Solidarity members there too. And I remember I looked to my staff and see I still smuggled the Polish Solidarity armband. It was white, red, and Solidarity. So I say, holy shit, I have it. And when our truck was, the prison truck was stopped because it was a huge demonstration. The Solidarity, there were street fights with the police. I was thinking, like, I'm going to pull it out. These people are free as they would. But one of the more smart, one of the more, what a good word would be, Solidarity members, he said that don't do it because they will free us. But what then? Then we're going to tie up the people from underground fighting communists with us. They have to protect us, they have to care for us, and could jeopardize themselves. So put it back, put it away. So I kind of like listened to him. His name was Andrzej Krasuski. So he's my hero. Quite a few of those, Edek Kędziorski is the guy the first guy I met in the intermediate prison. So he was moved out to Hrubieszów earlier than I was. But he was the first Solidarity member that I met. And so then I started learning from these guys. So these guys knew the history. These guys knew the underground. They knew how the underground works. So they were helping me. They were like basically educating me. And so Edek Kędziorski, he was moved to the transport to Hrubieszów prison. Then in the prison, I was sitting with Andrew Krasuski and like 4 other prisoners. And they were transporting us. This is when that Solidarity trade union flag, the armband came up, but I was told not to do it. And so we arrived to the Hrubieszów prison. And then life was totally different now. So I would check out the entire SEAL platoon in like 10 minutes. Well, within the 10 minutes, we all were checked out, including myself.